Hello, this is Gary from Southeast Texas. I'm going to do a walking tour of the container gardening that I'm doing in the front yard. And first off, we're going to be looking at, these are some sweet potato starts that I'm starting for the main garden up front and in the backyard. And all you do on the sweet potatoes is you kind of leave them out. When they start kind of sprouting a little bit, put them sideways, put about 1 inch or 2 of soil on top of them. That's a very shallow pot in there. And they'll start growing. These are ready. I can start planting them out now. I just hadn't got around to doing it yet. In some of my previous videos, I was showing the ginger that I'd started and planted, video on it. They didn't really take off very fast. It just wasn't warm enough. But now it's warmed up, they're starting to grow. Once they get a little bit bigger, they get about 1 foot and a half. I'll put them in this pot here, in this container here. It's an old goat trough, and that does drain because it leaks. And grow it there. They'll grow, 2 to 3 foot tall. I do put in partial shade. If you look, this here is my live oak tree. That's south, so that's where the sun's going to be coming in. So it will get, it's getting afternoon shade, but it is getting a little bit of morning sun. Not a whole lot, because it doesn't, you can, now some people say you can put it in full sun. They seem to start suffering some when I did. The tips of the leaves started dying back, so that's why I moved them over here. But anyway, you don't want them. Now remember, this is just a tree. It's very bright, so even though it's not getting direct sun, it's still bright. So it's not like it's up against the house or something where it doesn't get any light at all. Now up over here, got the oregano growing here, and it's still doing, like I say, oregano goes crazy. You can get all you want from this little bit. It just took we just planted a few seeds and then plan on it taking all the whole container, but it did. And this here's Okinawa spinach. Now if you're looking for a green that likes the heat, this is the one for you. You'll grow. It's very heat tolerant. It's not drought tolerant. You got to keep it moist, but it will take off and start growing. It does die back in the winter. It did come back from the roots on me on all 2 of these. The 2 on those 2 over there came back from the roots. This is one that I had in a pot. I cut it, I think in October or whatever. I put them in a solo cup, then I put them in a little bit smaller pot. I'll show you one here later. It did just fine. When it was sunny, I'd bring them, when it was warmed up, I'd bring them outside. A lot of times I put them on the front porch, which doesn't get any direct sunlight, but does get a lot more light than you'd have in the house. It doesn't take a lot of light. They're going to do fine. They may struggle. You're not really making anything in the winter time, but it's going to do all right. And you can do it that way. So even if I was up further north, I think you'll be fine. Give it as much sun as you can, or in a south facing window, but it doesn't require, it's not like you're gonna have to go in there and start putting much lights and stuff like that on. As long as you got a sunny window or whatever, it should do fine. I'm going to go up over here. This here's some basil that has come back from seed. Got some basil and some weeds on that one. It's come back from seed. That's Adriatic fig. It's got a bunch of figs on it. This is the 2nd year I've been growing it. It's got several figs on it. Looks like it's going to be a good tree. I haven't tasted any of the fruit yet. It's not a true Adriatic fig, but that's the name of it because they thought it was Adriatic when they named it. And it's actually found, I believe, somewhere in the Austin area. So, and that's my Roddenberry peach. It's a tree that comes back from seed, so you'll see a multi-stem. Usually when you see a multi-stem like that one's got, down there, it's a bad sign, because usually that means the rootstock is taken over. But this one, that's the way it produces. It does produce late. It's only got small peaches on it, but it's got several on it this year, so I'll maybe get a good taste, see how they taste. This tree here was a Flat Wonder peach. Made a lot of peaches this year. They tasted good. They only got about the size of a silver dollar. People remember what those look like. The big silver dollars they used to have. It's not a huge fruit, but it tasted good. It made several of them. I didn't have problems with the brown rot like I've had in the past. Didn't have any problem with the worms on this one either. So now it does have some suckers on the bottom of it, and I'm going to show when you get suckers like this, your graft, you see this right here is where the graft of the tree. This is the root stock. So when you see this here, you just need to take your pruners, cut those out, because they're not going to produce viable fruit, and they'll just sap energy from your main tree. So if you see those, a lot of times what happens, people they'll grow the tree, this main trunk here will die, the rootstock will come back, and they say, well, how come I'm not making any good fruit anymore? Well, it's because your main grafted fruit has died on you. We're going to swing back over here, and this here's my apium tree. Kind of disappointed in it. I think it's got 2 of them on it, and I thought it survived some of the winter, but apparently it didn't, or it just didn't produce much. There might not have been a pollen, not real sure. Sometime I've noticed on these trees that when you get the interspecies trees, your apiums, your pluets, they don't fertilize real well and get good pollination. So I think that's it. Just I don't know if this is gonna be a really good tree or not, but I'll give it another year. It's been a tough year. This is the cherry of the Rio Grande, starting to throw out some new growth. It has not bloomed yet. I'm not sure, since it suffered a fair amount of damage, where it's going to bloom or not. If you look back down in there, it's got really pretty bark. It did survive. Where you see it sitting is where it sat all winter long. We got down to 12, 13 degrees. It's done this twice and survived both times. This here is one of my dwarfs. I do want to show on dwarf tomatoes. This here's dwarf tomato, and see my hand. They're dwarf tomato plants. They're not dwarf tomatoes. They will make a big tomato plant on certain varieties of them. This one here is not making as big. It's got some disease problems, not sure. That one over there is Fred's tie-dye, and then this is Tasmanian chocolate. And I'm not going to talk a whole lot about the dwarfs, just because a lot of times just separate video for them, but they're doing well. They're starting to some disease problems. I am having a lot of blossom end rot, which I normally don't have, but I use new potting soil, and it just doesn't have enough calcium in it. I'm gonna put some. I did fertilize this week with some calcium nitrate. Try and get some calcium in it. I'm also gonna put some gypsum on it. That will help. And I also put some ag lime. Got to be careful with ag lime. You don't want to get the pH too high, but down here we're not as alkaline as most areas in Texas. And that's a little Chickasaw plum there. I put it in the roots from another. That's one of the Papa John's. Again, I think that's the 2nd year on it. And another fig. I think that's champagne fig. I think it's only 2 years old also. The raised bed we have here isn't doing a whole lot right now. I need to plant some more stuff. The peppers are just now starting to take off a little bit, and I think those are habaneras, or one of the low heat habaneros. And this is the tropic snow. Been getting peaches off of it. There have had some damage to it, but they're looking good. This tree is probably 8 to 10 years old. It's been in the same pot the whole time. It's done well. It survived the flood. It was under 8.5 foot of water for like 8 days, or it was underwater for 8 days. So it's done. It looks bad. It looks rough, but it's still producing peaches, and that's what really counts. Coming up over here, this here, I kind of lined these up. This is a variegated white Thai pepper. I don't know the actual variety name. They didn't really tell you, but it does have the variegated leaves to it, if you like variegated. Some of the other ones had a lot better or greater variegated leaves. This is the pesto basil. This is the Cuban oregano. It's looking a lot better since it's been in a bigger pot. This is the pot that I grew the Okinawa spinach in. It's a small pot. Like I said, I haven't taken good care of this thing, but you put that in the ground or in a bigger pot, you'll take off, and it's already, fairly good size. I mean, you can still eat these leaves here. They're a nice, pretty leaf. They do make good for, like, if you're going to put on a sandwich, as a substitute for lettuce. I've heard of some people making it like you would for a green, cooking them. Other people say it's turned out slimy. What I like about it is it's a regular leaf type texture. It's not, I'll show you that there's a Malabar spinach, and it's a big fleshy type, succulent type leaf, and some people's turned off by the texture on that. This is called katuk or sweet leaf, and it's, you put that in your salad. It's a very sweet leaf on it. It also comes from cuttings, and this would be, I've grown it before, but this is a new plant that I bought this year, and I potted it up, so it's starting to put out some new growth on it. It should do good. This is the Jiu-Jitsu sweet lemon, and it's got some little lemons on it. Now, I know people are going to say you ought to take those lemons off, but I'm not going to, because I got a big tree that suffered damage this year, and this will give us some lemons, because that's the only lemons we're going to have. It's a lemon that you can eat just like you do an orange. So, you know, if you like the oranges, you see these peaches on the ground, that's what them stinking squirrels will do. And they probably stole it from that tree over that I showed you. It's a tropic snow peach. It's not from the other peach tree you see. It's not from that one. It's from either that one way over there or the one way over there on the other side of the car. So they took 4 or 5, took a bite out of them, ruined them, and didn't even eat them. But anyway, I used to try to dodge squirrels, and I'd end up hitting them in my car. Now I try to hit them, I miss them every time. But anyway, I do not like squirrels. This is the other of the lychee tree. You have to have a second variety, or they don't pollinate very well. I found that again this year. That I thought was going to make really good on the other one, but then all the fruit started falling off. I don't think they're all going to fall off, but a great majority of them did. This is the Grumbachamba. It's a cherry type tree or bush. It has never made cherries. I've had it for like 4 years now. Hopefully this year it'll bloom out, but I'm starting to wonder on it. These are more of my sweet potato slips. I do have about, if I plant, probably 150 foot of them, so I had to have 150 plants. Those plants there are already ready to go. I just have not got around to getting them out yet. The reason I got a trash can full of water, this is what I use to water these plants with. I'll take a hose, I'll put it in there, I'll turn it on, and I'll use the buckets to fill those up with water. And I can just fill them up and go water it, come back, fill them up, and I'll use 2 of them because I got 2 hands. And that way I don't have to run and have to wait for it to fill up the bucket. I can just stick it in there and then let the water continue to fill it up. I've got to shut off on the hose, so if it gets too full I can stop it. But that way, if you're watering your plants, you don't have to put that hose in there, let it fill it up, then go water. You can just turn your hose on, let it start filling that. You know, I already have it water in the trash can. I leave water in it. Not really had any real problems with the wiggletails or the mosquito larvae, and that's how I do it. It just makes it quicker to do it that way, and you don't have to drag the hose all over. And I know how much water I'm putting in each bucket. The reason I do it, got a 2-gallon bucket. Now some of them needs 4 gallons, some needs 2 gallons. And if I put 4 gallons in, I know how much I've got. If I use a hose, I've got to sit there and count or do some way to know how much water I'm putting in them. Behind that is a container, just a regular, that's a Hosinator determinate tomato in a bigger pot. I just want to see how they do, and I had extras, and they're going to make the top of that pot pretty quick. These I need to put, that's a Sun Gold. I need to put my cage around it. That's the blush. I've gotten, I think, 3 off it so far. And then this over here is a Sunrise Bumblebee, and I've gotten 2 or 3 fruits off it, and it's starting to bloom. And these were kind of stunted. I just put them in here. I had extra plants, see how they're doing. So far they're doing pretty good. And this here is the cages that I use. Kind of give you an idea how tall they are. They're 5 foot tall. So, and then I'll put 2 stakes or 2 stakes, or put them in the ground, 3 stakes if I put them around on these pots, because they blow over easier. But that's why I used to stake them up. To me, it's just easier. And that's that reinforced concrete wire I'm using there. And that's my tree that all the limbs keep breaking off on it. So far, I ain't got hit by them. But I was here the other day and heard a big crash, and one of those limbs had come down and crashed. So this is another one of the tropic snow. And as you see, those aren't quite ready to be ready in a day or 2. And hopefully the squirrels won't get to them. But they make a real pretty fruit. They are a white peach, and again, I've got to cut those. See, these things the suckers are here will take over, and those need to be cut out, because you're just robbing energy from the tree, and these never will produce anything. So This here is my other big lychee, and this thing was covered in fruit. And you see all these little points there that had them in there. You see this one here's died off, and some of them are bigger. I think those were going to go ahead and make it, but this thing was covered on this one side, and they've just slowly been dropping them because I didn't have a second tree, so they just don't pollinate. You would think they pollinated. They get to that size about like this, and then they turn brown and die, or they turn green. I have some that's green that is on the ground. You know, but like I say, I thought it was going to do okay, but you know, if you don't have that second variety, that's what happens. They are starting to put on a little bit of growth, so I know I got some fertility to them. That's the way they grow, is they just start flushing out like that, kind of like a orange or a satsuma. This is my longan. The longan didn't seem to need it as bad. It just didn't bloom this year for whatever reason. But the year that it did bloom good, it set a lot more of its fruit than the lychee did. This here is a Malabar spinach that just comes back from seed. It will make a little. It'll make a little runner like this. It'll put little red berries on it. Like I say, it's more of a. It's just got a fleshier leaf to it. Some people like that. We don't particularly like it that well. I end up pulling this up because I don't really need it. But it does come from seed, where the Okinawa spinach, you have to get it from cutting. So it does make it easier, because if you put it in a certain spot, it's going to reseed itself. And each year, so you don't have to worry about that. It's going to come back. It's a little bit invasive, where the Okinawa spinach isn't invasive at all. The blackberries are about done. A few little. I don't think that one ever did. That's the. I will say on this one, that's the pink lemonade, and they just don't seem to make very often. And when they do, they make light. This year it didn't hardly make any. And other people, they're kind of a light producer, so if you're going for production, this is not the one that you want. They do look pretty and they do taste good. This one here is the O'Neill. You know, it's still hanging in there. It's one of my oldest ones, so it's, you know, 8-10 years old in that same pot, and you know, it still will produce some berries. That's a sweet crisp. That's probably the best tasting of the blueberries. That one, I think, Snow Chaser. It's got some green ones on it, hadn't ripened yet. And then that's another sweet crisp there. Let me walk y'all around over here. This blueberry here is almost ready, but not quite. And when you put them in pots, they're not as big. So if you're putting in pots and they're kind of smaller fruit, that's just the way they are. This here's the pumpkin mandarin. It's got a few fruits on it. It's dropped several. Doesn't look real healthy. It may not be getting as much sunlight. I probably need to fertilize it some more, because citrus loves a lot of nitrogen, so sometimes you got to pump the nitrogen to these things. This is the another one of the pomelo, according to how you want to say it. It has some blooms on it. This is the second year, I believe, on this tree, so it's still a young tree. And a lot of times these young trees won't produce. This here is that leaf miner damage. Usually it's kind of minor, it's more cosmetic. I haven't really tried to do a whole lot for it. This here is the clementine mandarin. It's got several small fruits on it all over. Got one there, so it's set fruit a lot better. Some there, and it just looks healthier. So, but this one has been in this pot this is the third year, where the other one over there has only been in it for 2 years. So it just may be time to get adjusted, because I potted that one up from this year. This is Myers lemon. Myers lemon is really good for out here. I planted it again like 6, 7, 8 years ago, and it does produce fruit every year. It's never been potted up. The potting soil I got's not very good. It's kind of collapsed on me. I do need to repot it. It's kind of a hard thing to do, because if I repot it, it's probably going to drop off its fruit. So I kind of need the fruit in there, and then I didn't get around to repotting when I probably should have. But I do pull it in when it gets cold. I do pull it in the garage to protect the plant from dying. So, you know, it's not the most winter hardy. If you get one that comes back from the roots, that's not grafted, they will come back from the roots. If they're grafted, it doesn't do any good because you get the root stock. But this is the pomelo, and it's got some nice, pretty fruit on it. The tree don't look that great, but again, this is, and it's made a lot in the past, so it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's probably got a dozen fruit on it already, and it's still blooming. So those might set some right there too. So it's got at least a dozen fruits on it, and it's I think 4 years old. And this was the Tropic Beauty, and it don't look real healthy. It did produce some fruit. It produced really early fruit. Only thing I'm gonna be nervous on it is once a peach tree produces the fruit, you know, it blooms and puts fruit on, they're very susceptible to freezes. And this tree didn't do it, but the trees out there in the orchard, I lost all the fruit out there because we got like down to a little bit below 30 degrees, and it wiped everything out, all my fruit trees. And as far as the fruit on them, there's some more of the others. I did want to come over here and show y'all. This is have been in ground. I planted it 5 years ago in ground. It hasn't grown a whole lot. It did receive some winter damage this year, so but it's a strawberry variety or Green Ishua. It does root really readily, so you can root it real easy. You know, I've rooted several of them. There's the other figs that I've got, and my big fig eater has my oldest son has moved last week, so it's kind of got to figure out what to do with these figs now. And last thing I'm going to show you, this is my container with the cucumbers in it. I'm going to let it grow up the tree, or grow up the fence, and see how it does. And it's been a while since I've grown the cucumbers in the container, but they're looking good. But anyway, that's the tour. Thanks for watching, and hope appreciate it. Appreciate you watching.